Right, good morning, boys and girls. We're going to be looking at decimals again this week, but we're coming towards the end of that particular unit. So we'll be looking at the final few objectives. One of the objectives is looking at subtracting decimals with a different number of decimal places. And we'll also be looking at decimal sequences, and we will be looking at multiplying decimals. And then there's one more lesson, which is going to be for the following week, which will be dividing decimals. So we'll get straight on with the example that we've got in front of you right now. And if we look at that, we can see we've got one number which is to one decimal place and the other which is to 3 decimal places. Okay, so the most useful thing for you to do would be to put your placeholders in, all right, and then when you look at it now, it just looks like a fairly sort of standard subtracting from 0 problem, which we've already done quite a bit of. So we start over here with the smallest number. We start over there with our thousandths, and if we look at that, we can't do 0 take away 5. So we go into the hundredths column next door, and there's nothing there, that's empty. So we have to go to our tenths. All right, so we are going to borrow one of those tenths, so we cross that out. This becomes a 6, and then if we then exchange, all right, this becomes so we put that into our hundredths column, and then we're going to exchange again, and now we can begin to solve this problem. So we can do 10 subtract 5, which equals 5, and if we do 9 take away 2, that equals 7. There's more exchanging going on here because we can't do 6 take away 8. All right, so we're going to have to exchange here. All right, so we look at doing 16 take away 8, which is 8. Don't forget your decimal point. And 4 take away 4 equals 0. So that's quite a complicated example because there's a lot of exchanging going on, okay? So what I'm going to encourage you to do with these sorts of examples is really take your time. Make sure you set out your work really neatly. You can see there that I've left quite a bit of space in between all of my numbers so that if I am exchanging, then it doesn't become a complete mess, all right? If you kind of bunch your numbers up really, really closely and don't leave any space, there's a good chance you might get a little bit confused and it might just become overcomplicated, okay? Let's move on to our next example. Okay, so on Tuesday, you're going to be looking at adding, subtracting numbers with different decimal places. So again, a good way to get into this is to just put your placeholders in to start off with. Okay, don't forget your decimal point. I mean, you can put that in at any stage of the calculation. You might want to put it in before just to make sure you don't forget. But now it's a really straightforward calculation. 0 plus 5, starting over here, remember, with our smallest number, equals 5. And 0 plus 4 is 4. 3 and 1 is 4. And then you haven't got any numbers here in your 10 or your hundreds column, so it's just 5 and a 1. So there we go. It's really, really simple, okay? But good practice for us to actually become confident with adding these sorts of numbers together. So, you know, again, take your time, set your work out nice and neatly, and you shouldn't really have any problems with that, okay? But just be careful, all right, with your presentation. All right, so on Wednesday, we're going to move on to looking at decimal sequences. So to enable you to answer those questions, what you need to do is first of all look at the number and decide whether or not that number is getting bigger or whether it's getting smaller. Is it increasing or decreasing? All right, and if we look at this one here, we can see that every time we move from one number to the next in our sequence, it is getting smaller. And the next thing you need to know is, well, okay, by how much is it getting smaller? Okay, so what you have to do is find the difference between 1.32 and 1.22. Now, you might decide to do a column subtraction. All right, that would definitely get you your answer. Okay, but really, if we look at this number and we use our place value, we shouldn't have to do that when we compare those two numbers. Okay, look at the number that is changing each time. Okay, and that is our tenths column. All right, so it's gone from 3 tenths to 2 tenths. So have a little think to yourself now, what number is that? By what number has that decreased? Have a little think. Hopefully you've got the answer as 0.1. So every single time, all right, we move from one number to the next, it is decreasing by 1/10, okay? All right, every single time. All right, so if we take a look at this first missing number we've got here, all right, then if we now take that number away, okay, 0.1 from 1.12, what's your answer? Have a go at that one now, please. Okay, hopefully you came up with the answer of 1.02. Okay, and now we're going to look at our next number, 0.92. And again, we're just going to subtract the same number again, okay, and that will leave us with 0.82. Okay, now what I'd like you to have a go at is the last two boxes there, please. That should be fairly straightforward. Remember, the only number you're changing here is our tenths column. Okay, so have a little go at that now. Okay, so hopefully your answers are 0.72. I'm trying to squeeze this in here. And the last one, 0.62. Okay. Okay, and on Thursday and Friday, we're going to be looking at multiplying decimals, okay? And you're going to be multiplying them by 10, by 100, and by 1,000. So all you really need to do here is think about the work that we did all the way back in September, and we've continued to sort of drip feed in over the course of the year about multiplying by 10, by 1,000, and by 100. All right, so if we take a look at our first column here, we're going to do 8.29 multiplied by 10. So all we need to think about is moving each one of these numbers one place to the left, because remember, it's getting 10 times bigger. Okay, we'll be doing the exact opposite when we look at division. So the 8 moves from the ones into the tens column, and then again you do exactly the same with the 2 tenths. That's going to go into our ones, and then the 9 goes into the tenths from the hundredths column. Okay, so apply what we've just done there. We've moved one place to the left here. So now we're making it 100 times bigger, so we need to move it 2 places. So see if you can have a go at doing that for me now, please. Okay, so hopefully now you've moved it 2 places, all right, and we have our 8 in the hundreds column, our 2 in the tens, and the 9 in the ones, okay? All right, have a go at doing multiplying by 1,000 now, please, okay? Remember how many places you need to move it, okay? All right, so hopefully you've remembered now that you need to move it 3 places to the left, okay, because it's being multiplied by 1,000. So our 8 goes in the thousands, we have 2 in the hundreds, we have 9 in the tens, and we have a placeholder in our ones column, okay? So there'll be questions similar to that on Thursday and then on Friday as well, okay? And for every day, we're going to be putting up some discussion problems as well. Those of you that want to access that those activities, please feel free. And again, if you have any issues, please contact your class teacher, and we will do our very best to get back to you as quickly as we possibly can. All right, so keep checking the website for all the different activities, and yeah, we'll speak to you next week. Okay, goodbye, boys and girls.